Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at storage types. So let's have a look at the whiteboard. Storage falls into two main categories. We have primary storage, otherwise known as main memory, and we have secondary storage. Now, there's an awful lot more storage, certainly in the secondary area, which we could add. But this is what you need to know in the 11 ATAR course. So, main memory are registers, cache, RAM and ROM. Secondary are mechanical hard drives and solid states. And I'll spend a little bit of time giving a little bit more detail about what each of these are. However, what defines a storage which is in primary and what defines storage that is in secondary? Well, anything that is in primary storage, main memory, is memory that is directly linked to the CPU. So registers, cache, RAM, ROM, they're all directly linked to the CPU. Conversely, anything which is in secondary is not linked directly to the CPU. So with registers, we touched on that in our last video. And so registers are like the CPU's workbench. They are high-speed storage, which is able to hold data either as it's being processed or just before it is being processed. And the registers that you need to know is the program counter and the instruction register. The next one we have is cache. Cache is found on or near the CPU. It's high-speed memory, and it will hold the instructions which are used frequently, either used by the control unit or instructions that are likely to be used again. We have in cache what are called level 1 and level 2 cache. Level 1 cache is found within the CPU and will hold something like anywhere between 8 kilobytes to 64 kilobytes of memory. Level 2 cache can be found either in or very close to the CPU, and its capacity ranges from 64 kilobytes to 4 megabytes. How effective cache is depends on the cache hit and the hit rate. Cache hit is if the information is found in cache. So if the CPU wants to find some information, it will look in cache first. If it finds it there, that's a cache hit. Hit rate is how often the information the CPU needs is found in cache, and that's the hit rate. The next one down is RAM, random access memory. And random access memory is working storage used by the CPU. So for example, any applications that we are currently using is stored or is moved, copied from the hard drive into RAM. And that enables us to be able to see what we want on the monitor. RAM is essentially an electronic card which is attached to the motherboard. And when we looked at in class the various parts of a computer, you will recall that you looked at some RAM. 8 gigabytes is often ample enough on any computer, and the current RAM standard is DDR3, which is double data rate 3. The last one under main memory is that of ROM, read-only memory. And in the read-only memory, a chip is BIOS, Basic Input and output system. What we have there are startup instructions. So when the computer is turned on, the CPU needs to be able to find instructions to get going. It will go to the ROM to basically do that. The basic input-output system will also have a series of tests that it performs on the computer to make sure that everything is fine in the computer. ROM has non-volatile memory. So we'll talk about volatility in a minute, but registers, cache, RAM have volatile memory. ROM is different. It has non-volatile memory. That means that it is generally non-programmable. So what is put on the ROM we can't change. However, there is what is called EEPROM, which is electronically erasable, programmable, read-only memory, which can be reprogrammed. Now let's have a look at the secondary storage of mechanical hard drives and solid-state drives. Your hard drive, when you take it out of a computer, is in a rectangular case. This is pressurized and has this particular environment within it, so it's dust-free. If you were to take off the casing, what you would see would be what are called a series of platters, maybe 8 platters within a hard disk. Those platters are silver disks stacked on top of each other, and in between those platters are read-write heads that will move in unison forwards and backwards, reading the data on the platters. What you need for an efficient mechanical hard drive is a high spindle speed. So the disk will be rotating around 10,000 to 15,000 revolutions a second. You also want a high data rate. So that means that the CPU can draw information off the hard drive at around 300 megabytes a second. And you also want the hard drive to have a quick seek time, which means that the CPU is able to find that information on the hard drive very, very quickly, between 10 to 20 milliseconds. So here is our mechanical hard drive. The latest type of hard drive is a solid-state drive. This is an electronic disk, which again stores permanent data, but the big difference with the solid-state drive is that there are no moving parts, so that makes it very resilient and robust. The data is stored on microchips to retain the data. There's an awful lot of good things about the solid-state drive. It's silent, it's robust, you're able to access the data very, very quickly, and it's very easy to install. The only downside to a solid-state drive is that it's more expensive than a mechanical hard disk, but I would imagine in the near future those costs will be coming down quite considerably. So what we've looked at there is some information about main memory and secondary memory. The general pattern for main memory is that registers, cache and RAM have volatile memory. That means that it needs to have a constant current going through registers, cache and RAM for data to be retained. Once that current is stopped, any data that is stored in the registers, cache and RAM is lost because it is volatile. The only exception to that is ROM. ROM is non-volatile, so when the computer is turned off, information is still kept in the ROM chip. What applies to all of them is that you don't store very much in them. So it's small capacity. Generally, it's quite expensive with RAM and all the rest of it to buy this type of memory. And all of them are able to gain fast access via the CPU. Conversely, on the secondary side, hard drives, solid state drives, USBs, external hard drives are all non-volatile. So when there's no charge going through it, that's okay. The information is not going to be lost. Much greater capacity here. We're looking at terabytes nowadays for solid states and mechanical hard drives. A lot cheaper to buy, though the access time in comparison to primary main memory is a lot slower. So that's it for this video. We've looked at main memory, we've looked at secondary memory, we've looked at some of the characteristics of each of those and what defines main memory and secondary memory. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.